We are live. Thank you to everybody that's tapped in. You are listening to the He Nuh Show on WINN Media 98.9. Today is Sunday, 18th June. And for those that celebrate and for those that are routinely ignored, today is Father's Day. So, big up to all the fathers. Big up to all the men that are present in the lives of children. Anywhere you are in the world, we will recognize you. It's a big move. It's a big vibe. So, considering that today is Father's Day, we're going to have a discussion on fathers, fatherhood, what it means to be a father, what is the importance of fathers, and why some fathers don't show up. We're just going to touch on a whole wide range of topics relative to fatherhood. But, you know, from my personal perspective, sometimes I wonder if you have to be the biological parent of a child, as a man, to really recognize a child as yours. I mean, you know, there are some stepfathers who show up, they're very present, but do you think those men genuinely recognize those children as their offspring? Or, well, not necessarily offspring, but recognize those children as their children?
Yeah, I think so.
I
think some men have the level of compassion to recognize children who are not biologically theirs as their children.
True, indeed.
And bring them up.
Indeed.
Same thing with, you know, mothers as well too.
Well, mothers, I could see mothers doing it a lot more easily. Like, I think women are a lot more inclined to do things like adopt, right? I've never ever heard a man sit and say, you know, he wants to adopt a child. I've never encountered a guy that said that. So I think the majority of men that do adopt children because their partner wants to do that, and maybe because they have some type of infertility. There's some difficulty conceiving. But, you know, in my limited experience, it seems like men would prefer to sire their own children.
Well, I mean, if they have a partner and the partner adopts, and the compassion, you know, I mean, usually, like you said, like the women usually trigger that. But, you know, I think guys will have some compassion towards that.
Yeah. I mean, Father's Day, so, you know, we had a conversation after Mother's Day about mothers and Mother's Day and why Mother's Day had the significance that it had. Why do you believe Father's Day is less recognized than Mother's Day? You laugh.
I think that that's a tricky one. Maybe I didn't want to give the my plain answer to that, but I'll give it anyway, because this is a He Nuh, right? And I think generally the world at large, true men don't get bent out of shape for certain things. They don't necessarily care about men as much as they care about, you know, the feelings of women. I think men feelings come second. And the world at large.
Wait. So that's the reason why.
I think so, because I know.
That's why Father's Day isn't as recognized as Mother's Day?
I feel so.
Yeah, man.
That's partly so.
Okay. So partly, okay. I could swallow that. I was about to say I wholeheartedly disagree. But I could swallow that. That is part of the consideration. I think one of the things that contributes to Father's Day not being as recognized, and to fathers generally not getting the recognition that they deserve, even the good ones, right? Is because you have a wide cross-section of men, a large population of men who father children and don't show up in the way that they should.
Oh, but let's go back into it. The first thing, right, was said, and let's do a micro analysis of it, right? So, you know, you have a father and a mother in a home raising the children, right? Within that whole setting, mommy's feelings is much more important than daddy's feelings, you know. Like, mommy's feelings is much more recognized than daddy's feelings.
Daddy doesn't necessarily exhibit a whole lot of feelings.
Okay. So you see the level of compassion, like that level of interaction between recognizing mommy over daddy,
Right.
right? Is a little different.
Yeah, okay. So I understand what you're saying.
And I believe that
emotionally we show up
differently.
even in the genders.
Yeah, and even in parenting as well. I think that even parenting boys is different to parenting girls.
Right.
Right? Because you would tend to see that you give your girls maybe as a father, and even as a mother, like a little bit more attention than the boys.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that also that the father's not showing up and that part of it, right? I think partly is just because of the difference in the genders, like how we recognize them and see them.
Okay. I mean, and that's a valid argument. That's a valid argument. I don't discount that at all. But I think there's also a big part of it is that it's almost like the guilty pay for the innocent, or the innocent pay for the guilty, rather, where you have good fathers, but because society is accustomed to a dynamic where the man just ain't showing up and is always the mother, there is a bias towards the mommy thing. So we've created this, there's been a bias that's created towards mothers in relation to the home and children and child rearing and all those things, because you just have a lot of men that don't show up. So there's almost like an implicit expectation that the father ain't gonna really be around.
Yeah, I think that's partly too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get that like as a big thing. I think that that's partly as well, but that's a layer there because you got some men who might be in the home, but they're not present. Mystic, like they're not there.
What I mean, break that down.
They're not there in the capacity. Like, you got some men who are present. Like the children know them. The children go and visit them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have conversations with their father and stuff like that. But in terms of like emotionally, like giving the child like the things them that the child actually needs, sometimes. But ain't a fault sometimes to the father because sometimes he giving them just what he has or what he learned over the years, right? So, but the child may require something that's totally different, almost like create like a vulnerable space, right? For the children, but he might not have been brought up in that way, so he doesn't really have that door open for them necessarily.
So how is he there? What would that look like from his perspective? Like how
Providing.
So he provides.
Yeah, providing, but
But there's no emotional
there's
connection
an emotional
between him
connection.
and the child.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, daddy there to buy school books and you know what I mean, that type of thing.
Yeah, but not to sit down and have open conversations and like
assist
spend
with
time,
homework
assist with
and-
homework and stuff like that.
Okay, so to go right. Okay, I understand. And well, and that's an easy enough trap to fall into.
Easy.
Especially if you have a co-parenting dynamic where the mother is there and the mother shows up in those ways. It's easy for a father to feel like that's enough. And I think a lot of us as men don't necessarily realize that that's the bare minimum.
Yeah,
Like to spend some money to pay, let's say you're paying $500 a month child support. That's the bare minimum, bro.
Yeah.
You also need to connect. There are things that you need to do to connect with the child so that the child could recognize you as this person, because at the end of the day, they care very little about the material.
Yeah, and then when you go back further in time, so even the good fathers, they used to be a part. I want to be a part of the children's lives. Sometimes they used to go and fight wars, so they used to hardly kind of like be home. So the mothers used to have to spend more time with them. Right. So even the good fathers sometimes
less present.
Well, yeah.
At least physically.
So something it could be almost like an innate thing in us as men to not really, give time, because this is almost kind of new in essence, like to give time, because traditionally speaking, we used to be more out in the fields doing work and stuff like that, while the women stay at home,
moving around, right? So the father was always more of a nomadic individual.
Yeah.
Somebody transient, kind of on the go. Whereas mommy was stationary. Mommy was the stabilizing factor in the family.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could see, and you could also feel it sometimes as a man, like you could be at home, but you just need to go outside. You just need to go out. You need to link with your boys. So, you sit down and just, talk about things.
So what do you feel like a good parenting representation from a man should be in terms of making that connection with the child? Like, just a snapshot. How should a man show up? Because like we said, it's easy for a man to kind of overlook some of those things, and because he hasn't been raised in an environment, or that wasn't his experience when he was a child, right? How should a father kind of show up?
Man, I think as time kind of progressing now, and we gain more and more modern, I think that men just need to kind of take a step back and really position themselves to spend more time and, you know, be around the children a little bit more, because the time is so much more important than the things you give them. But they be showing up to like the sports day, even if it's a preschool sports day, right? Just showing up, just being there, even if it's like a dance recital, just showing up and be there, even if you're not interested in it, just show up. Because, you know, the presence is much more. And even for the child, like growing up and looking back at like photos and stuff like that, that can be important for them to see. It might not mean nothing to you, but for them in the future, it may mean something like, your daddy was always there.
Yeah. And create memories too.
And yeah, definitely.
Create memories, because it's like you said, a lot of fathers, they provide financial support. So you would see their children with the mother, and the children really nicely dressed, and they're probably going to a private school, and daddy funding that, right? Daddy funding the clothing and the schooling and all the stuff. But the child doesn't have a memory of going to the beach with the father.
Yeah.
Or the child doesn't have a memory of, okay, the father into football and the father take up the youth and go on football with the youth. You know? Every time he go football, he go on football by himself. He on a brethren. And it's little things. It's like creating these little memories. And these are things that I also fall into that trap of neglecting some of those things. Not recognizing that it's the little moments that really count in terms of creating that bond and spending that quality time with your seeds, with your offspring, right? So like one of the things that I would do is I used to always go to the supermarket and shop by myself, always. And now, as my son's getting older, I start to just allow them to come to the supermarket with me. So it's very rare that I would go to the supermarket without them.
Yeah.
I would show up in the supermarket every single time with them. And if I go into 2 or 3 different supermarkets based on what I'm trying to purchase, they're with me. So they get to learn kind of vicariously, just through osmosis, how things are done, right? And I now take the time to use those moments as teaching opportunities.
Yeah.
So teach you how to identify things in the supermarket, like where things are located, and I might fall back and give you the money and tell you, yeah, go and pay the cashier. And you're going to tell me, okay, if you want these 2 items and I gave you $20, based on the change you got back, how much was the total cost? You know, those types of things, those are things that I practice now routinely. Find out, you know, they might seem small, and they require a little bit of time and energy, because the time that I could have just gone past the cashier, my card, beep, 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 and you're out of the supermarket quick, right? For me to now fall back and allow them to pay and, you know, go through all of that, it kind of slows down the process. It kind of slows down the routine that you've created for yourself.
Yeah.
But there's also a value in that. So it's like some of those little things that I pay attention to.
Yeah, that reminds me of this quote that kind of stuck in my head recently, that small deeds are much more impactful or greater than grand intentions.
Yeah.
Because some of us fathers, we have like the intention, you know what I mean? Like sometimes we're doing things with the intent to make our children's lives better. But the small deeds don't really show up, and the small deeds is what come, because that's along the journey, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And, you know, it's easy. Again, it's really easy for you to neglect some of those opportunities to bond or not even see them, right? So it's easy for them to be omitted. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. There are days when I would want to go to the office, right? I'd want to go to the office to do some work because it's easier for me to work in the office. I have both screens. You could pull up a spreadsheet and go to what you're going through. And there have been times where my son's home, they're playing video games, or they're watching something on Netflix or YouTube or wherever it is, right? And I know, okay, I can only be out for X amount of time, boom, 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 make sure they eat. I could dip quick and then come back, right? But I've now recognized that even something as simple as telling them, yo, suit up, get dressed, let's go. And we jump in the vehicle and they drive down to the office with me on a Saturday. The office empty, but they're just out in the office, probably on the tablets or doing whatever it is while they're in the office working for an hour and a half, right? But they deal with me. I'm present to some extent, and they have a memory of going to work with daddy on a Saturday, right? And it's not all the time, so it becomes almost like a thing. When they get a little bit older, they're gonna remember that.
Yeah.
And it seems so vague. It's almost something that you could ignore, but you really don't recognize as a father that those little moments, they really mean something to your kids when your kids go, you know what I mean, be present with you while you're on your grind, while you're doing what you have to do. And you make that time for them. So it's almost like sharing space. So that they get to share the space, they get to see you in that element, as opposed to just being home. And they get a bigger picture of who daddy is.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, I think fathers especially, well, poor parents, but fathers especially, sometimes you got to be a little bit open, like vulnerable with your children. Because I could tell you, when I was younger, my father moved away to the States. So I used to know, like, at a certain, maybe like a Saturday or Sunday, I would get a call at a point in time, and as I could remember, as my memory kicked in, because I think he moved when I was maybe like 2 or 3. But he used to call like every maybe 2 weeks or something like that, right? And that was, I have the memory, like, he used to call often. Now move forward, kind of in a similar situation when my son lives in the States, right? So it's almost like a remote parenting situation again. But, you know, we have access to WhatsApp and, you know, FaceTime and all these things, but I don't really call as often as my father used to call.
Yeah.
Right? But I have those open conversations with my son. I ask him how we feel. Like, yo, you understand what we're doing. Hope you don't feel anyway. We have open conversations about it just to make sure that he know that I'm not really neglecting. I didn't forget him. And, you know, he always reassure me, like, he understands, you know, what's going on. He know, you know, he could get me anytime he needs me and stuff like that. But just having those conversations, because you have to be upfront, especially as they enter the realm of teenage years.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, so you kind of trigger a thought, something that I've been considering a little bit recently, is that one of the things that I think we also take for granted, and just in the context of fatherhood, parenting from a fatherhood perspective, is your children getting older too, right? So they're growing up, like you said, they're now teenagers, and then it's like almost young adults, then adults. But during that transition period, as you neglect certain things, as you move around and they don't feel connected to you, in any particular way, they start to develop this concept of who you are as a person. And that's where you see some dynamics within, or some relationships, parent-child dynamic, when that child gets to young adult stage, or, you know what I mean? Like, even late teens, parent can't control that child. You can't tell me nothing because I don't have any respect for you, right? But it's because the respect wasn't built. The relationship wasn't properly established. So, yeah, you might have been helping mommy do this, or you might have been, you know, running money. You might have been sending money for me or wherever it is. But I really don't feel connected to you. I really don't feel like I know you.
But you see, sometimes when I look at some of those situations and are connected to parenting, right? Sometimes in that situation, like when the father ain't in the home, let's say he's not in the home, and he paying child support, and the mom, you know, is like single parent situation, right? Sometimes women tend to discredit the father, right? So when the child reach at the age of understanding, like, say, maybe like 14, 15, 16, 17, right? In those age where they could actually go now and have conversations with that, that already done shut down, because the child has already been informed of who daddy is based on mommy experience, but not on the child's own experience of who daddy is.
Right.
Because sometimes you end up in situations where the moms hold on to the child so strong that they don't even get, like, they don't even want daddy around our daddy even can't come to the house type of thing. But he was always stay consistent and, send like child support, make sure the child get gifts and things like that. But when the time comes for the child now to come and ask questions and have them conversations, they can't even reach there because there's already some level of dysfunction where the child don't even want to hear nothing what daddy got to say based on what mommy or even some relatives like granny or whoever around tell that child about their father.
Yeah, because they didn't have a chance to establish that independent relationship with the father. You know what I mean? And I mean, some of these things are very difficult, because they require thought. They require real serious thought, especially if you intend to break that mold or break that pattern that's been created, right? And it require you as a man sometimes to even be humble.
Humble about that.
You know what I mean? To imply humility and say, okay, this is the situation. I really don't like how this tastes, but I'll make the sacrifice because I understand long term it has significant benefit in relation to the relationship that I could be able to
have with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I hate to hear men blame the mothers, I can't understand, right? But I hate it when they kind of blame the mother, especially when the child reach at the age of, where they have a level of independence outside the mother. I hate to hear when they blame the moms.
Because to some extent, when you decide to blame the mother for everything, you remove the personal accountability. Because you definitely had a part to play, right? Regardless of how it plays out, the man always has a part to play. And there's always something that can be done. Like even in those situations where there's a breakup, the mother bitter, a child is in the mix, and the child is now weaponized against the father, right? Some of those situations might seem hopeless. They might seem like there's no real way around this. So if, for instance, you have that type of dynamic, but the mother isn't necessarily using the child or manipulating the child in a way to turn them against you, but they're just not allowing you to engage with the child. So it's like off and on, because I've seen those situations where, depending on the mood that the mother in, the father could check for the child, and then other times,
it's like a no.
You just can't come through, right? There's things that the father could do. Sometimes it's a matter of you just going with your hat in your hand, right? And being all the way humble about the approach. And it doesn't feel good because you feel wronged as a man. You feel like, by trying to support my child, I'm trying to be there for this youth and this woman doing X, Y, Z. But you don't exist within her head. So the psyche is different. She's looking at things through a completely different lens. And sometimes it's just about being humble, being vulnerable, and saying to her, hey, listen, I understand wherever it is and how you feel. Could I please spend Saturday with,
said child?
Yeah. And I mean, I know wherever it is, just give me a few hours. But sometimes we hold a defensive position.
As men.
And they are holding a defensive position, and then you make no progress. So daddy ain't on time with mommy ain't on time with daddy, and the child going up our schedule.
Yeah. So what you end up seeing sometimes is that some of these fathers are also products of single parent homes.
Yeah.
Right? And you really, as men, we don't really, this is men's mental health too, this month. It's men's mental health month, right? And why I said that is sometimes you need the actual mentorship, from other men to step in, because you might not have the tools needed for you to look past, what mommy going through and the kind of energy or, the defensiveness that she's pushing, but you might not have the tools necessary to look past that unless you go and talk to maybe a close brethren, even your father, if that relationship exists, some elder, because man, it's very easy for you as a man to go to somebody and say, well, me baby mother do this, and somebody fan that, and they ain't correct you. They ain't gonna stop you and tell you about them your children, What you telling me? You gotta look after your children,
Yeah, definitely.
Right? It's much easier to hear the opposite, yeah man, but woman this, no, why? No. Like me personally, I don't even think I could really be around dudes to say like bang like close if they don't take care of the children.
No, because I can't trust you same way, right? I can't trust you. But I mean, you made a very valid point in that a lot of the masculine experience, especially as it relates to being positive in your outlook, is shaped by that sense of community, having other men with integrity and principle to tap into. Because a lot of the ways that I move, a lot of the principles that I hold now relative to parenting and just about being a man, those things weren't independently developed.
No.
A lot of them were pieces that I took from other people's experiences and just watching how other men show up in the world and decide, okay, yeah, that's it. That's the template, that's the formula. That's how I want to be. You know, seeing men moving in a certain way, being stoic and holding a sturdiness, really protecting the family and, you know what I mean, contributing meaningfully in the children's lives. I saw that. So that didn't come wholly from me, like I just get children and walk over here, this is how I'm going to be as a father. No, man. To some extent, I had my father in my life. So while it wasn't the greatest relationship ever, he did some things right. He did a few things right. And those things that he did correctly, they kind of instilled certain values in me. They showed me how I should show up now that I've become a father.
Yeah. And the major thing too is to let your kids see how daddy treat mommy, yeah? Even if you're not together. Because you got to establish that respect, you know, both ways. Because once a child say that daddy respects mommy.
And the thing is, the reality is it's not going to always be perfect.
No, you're going to never be perfect.
Right? So even when it's not perfect, how do you deal with those imperfect situations? Right? How do you imply conflict resolution and move forward, especially with the goal of maintaining a meaningful relationship over the long term, because this co-parenting thing ain't easy. As men, we have to recognize that. It will never be easy, because oftentimes you're dealing with a woman who feels slighted. She feels like you do something direct, right? And in a lot of cases, we have done things as men. So you have somebody that you have this lifetime bond with, the shared experience to mold and raise another life. But because of how things are set up, usually the mother is the dominant parent, right? She is the guardian, the primary guardian. Now, as a father, you want to show up, you also want to be present in your child's life, but you got to deal with this woman who you had a relationship with, and she bitter, she vex. But things that happen whenever they happen, right? How do you bridge that gap? How do you kind of create the balance between that? And that is where we need to kind of get our minds functioning as men. Like, I understand, yo, you're moving, you're doing all kind of things, you're doing the most, right? You might be, as a man, looking at the way that your child and mother behaving and saying like, yo, you're doing the most. But you also gotta look at where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You know where they're coming from. So if you know where that's coming from, what do? Even if you really ain't feel like you want to apologize for nothing, just say sorry. Because at the end of the day, if your ultimate goal is to build a relationship with your child, is very few circumstances that you will be able to do that outside of the mother, right? Oftentimes the mother in the picture all the way.
Yeah.
There are some mothers who have the presence of mind to step back and say, okay, me and you had wherever it is, but me ain't care about you anymore, but I still want you to be present in your child's life, so I'm going to just allow you to be a father. And they don't hold any steam, and they allow the child to interact with the father. But there are a lot more mothers who, because of how they feel, unconsciously, they do things to damage the relationship between you and the child, right? And when you're operating in those situations, how do you navigate? That's the real critical part.
But I think that comes with experience and I guess some mentorship again, because a lot of us ain't really have these tools on deck to start off with them. I was saying a lot of us don't have that. So I think as things get modern, we have a lot of, right now, you see, like mental health is a big thing. and learning how to do conflict resolutions and stuff like that is a big thing, right? In essence. So the information is there, but it kind of also goes back to trust, right? Like you go to a trusted source to have a conversation, because anybody can check you as a man,
No.
right? So you could hang around with somebody.
Like most people can check you.
That's what I'm telling you. Most people can check you. If you, in your friend group as a man, sometimes only like 10% of your friends could check you.
And that's a lot. 10% is a lot.
10%, maybe one person. You may got 10 dudes you hang with, only one of them could check you.
Yeah, true.
Right? And that in itself is ticklish, but that's just how the cookie crumble, you know what I mean? But sometimes you need that, and because let's say that the one you respect or trust ain't even on that type of time.
No, and again, it comes down to vulnerability, because it's also about you speaking the truth. The human experience is you are able to justify all of your actions, no matter what they are. Mm-hmm. You're able to justify all of your actions. Mm-hmm. So there's also that situation or that dynamic where I can come and tell you the story, but I paint in the story in a particular way to get your agreement, to get your tacit approval, right? For you to say, "Bah, yeah, I see what you move." So, as opposed to me coming and saying, "Bah, this is what I really did, and this is the situation. This was the response. Boom, 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 boom. What do you think?" Mm-hmm. Right? And giving your brethren, this one that you trust, a fair opportunity to gauge, because if you give me 50% of the story, I can only give you advice on the 50% that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. So you might tell me all of these things and paint it using your emotions and your feelings, that she's such a terrible person, she's a demon. And the advice that I can give you going to be colored by that information, right? So again, a lot of it is just being self-aware and taking accountability same way.
Yeah,
like
I mean, and
registering that you're imperfect.
And funny, sometimes we do want to hear a different counter argument to what might be the norms, right? Because I remember a situation, I walked into a room once, and a cousin of mine was having conversations with other cousins, like men, and he was going to some violence like with his girlfriend, right? And I walked into the conversation. They probably was having the conversation for the past like 3 to 4 hours, but when I hear everything and I listen to everything before I was part of the conversation, I gave a whole different perspective, right? I stayed there for maybe like an hour and then left. That cousin came back and looked for me like the very next day. Like on a one-to-one, no, he said, "Listen, man, what was going before you came was totally what I didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
I needed to hear what you were saying. So I need to hear some more of what you're saying, because I need the advice." And I was like, wow. But even like with raising children and dealing with like exes and baby moms, even your wife and all these different things, sometimes, you men groups need to kind of show up, but sometimes we as men we don't show that type of level of vulnerability between even each other.
Because it's difficult. It's difficult as a man to expose your flaws, right? If you look at it from an animalistic perspective, we move in hierarchies, and it's like what wolves do to show submission is they lay down on their back and show their belly, right? A man ain't like to show his belly, no matter what. Yeah, because it's like weakness. So you don't want to admit that, but there are moments when you have to be weak. I mean, I've had moments of profound weakness in the last 6 months. Profound weakness, bro. And I mean, you would know. But what do? I don't think that those moments define us, though. Because they happen, they're just part of the ebb and flow of life.
Yeah.
And as you encounter those situations, you also have to register, okay, what's the most beneficial way that I could deal with this? Well, how do I come out on the other side of this clean?
But that's it right there. That's what defines you, the response. The response is what builds your character. Not really the problem.
Right.
Or the situation, but it's how you respond to it.
And, those things are hard. And nobody will teach you this, eh?
No.
Like, you go through life, and there's almost an expectation that you're going to just show up as a man, as a fully formed man, like fully masculine and know how to navigate and know how to do things. But that is unrealistic, same way.
Mm-hmm.
It never happens. There's a process of refinement. And for me, the masculine experience is iron sharpening iron.
Yeah.
Like, I think the best men, the greatest men, are men that had mentors, that had people that gave them certain tools from early on in life. And they then got to a stage where they understood the use of those tools and started to employ them.
And you know, it's funny too. You know, there's a lot of women out there who also could, let me put it in, could kind of game up men, you know what I mean? Like game up men to be better men as well, because some situations where some women might have grown up with their dads present and their mom present, like in the same home, and their dad might have been somebody, you know, who was very stoic in a way and pass on certain knowledge. So when they do get a partner, if a man is humble enough to recognize his woman as and respect her enough, she could probably teach him a few things about how he might be responding to things. Like I remember this book, The Way the Superior Man.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I got to this book, I was listening to a rapper, and his girlfriend actually was the one who kind of put him onto the book because she read it and thought it would be important for him.
Right.
So he read it and see it was important for him. So I mean to say something, you got to just like have a little trust in the feminine as well, because some of them could develop some solid men, depending, you know, and their outlook on life.
And I mean, but the reality is, we are equal in that we're all part of the cosmic balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? The man is nothing without the woman,
Mm-hmm.
and the woman is nothing without the man. And it's easy for us as individuals to feel like we have it figured out. And what you're talking about is recognizing that you never have it figured out. Everybody's story has relevance, and everybody has their own perspective, which, if you allow them to share their perspective, it could shine light in some dark areas that you have.
Yeah, definitely, because what happened is, even in this like modern time too, like you hear some men claim alpha, right? And part of that alpha that they claim, which to me isn't alpha, is that no woman could tell them what to do.
Which is just aggression.
Yeah. So you got some men who just tell them, but no woman can tell me what to do, no woman can lead me, no,
but alpha is supreme understanding.
Supreme.
You know what I mean? Supreme knowledge. And supreme knowledge only comes from balance and difference of perspectives, right? So one of the things that I'm attempting to work on now, especially as I get older, is the same thing, understanding. Even understanding somebody else's position in a particular situation. Now, that's not always been my strong suit, but I realize, if you're saying you want to be a good man, you want to be a better man, a better father, a better brother, whatever it is, you can't operate based on your own thoughts, right? So, I'm not necessarily a biblical person or like a religious person, but there are things that you read in the Bible or you hear from the Bible. And if you go through life with any intentionality, when them things come back to you, bro, you understand how profound they are, right? There's a verse, I can't tell you what verse it is, so when them Christian people can break it down. But there's a verse in the Bible that says, lean not on your own understanding, right? And that's what we're talking about right now. Like, if your understanding of the world and situations is your only vehicle, is the only momentum that you use to move forward, you're gonna crash.
Yeah. I mean, that we always talk about that book, The Four Agreements, and you understand that sometimes even like the greatest leaders always kind of like follow mistake, like even in lifetime.
Yeah.
In each situation, they might let somebody like spill out information, and they just let it go, even if it's offensive. It's supposed to be offensive to them. They just let it come out, right? And also like follow where this person is going with what they're saying. But when the time comes to lead, now they could step in because now they have all the data, and they could assess it and make a decision to say, you know what, this is what it's gonna be, without ego, because something you give somebody a chance to kind of like shine in their own way.
Yeah.
And afterwards, you could see, and that could be something that could, like you said, like shine a light on your own, flaws in a way, a blind spot, where you can make a better decision But it's just back and forth, and there's no competition between like the feminine and the masculine, or the woman and the man. It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. But there is that, and I think that competition that exists between the woman and the man in any realm of human endeavor, so be it relationship or job or just existence, is very problematic.
Yeah, man.
Because a lot of times as men, we don't really give credence or relevance to a woman's feelings and emotions. And the feelings and emotions impact the way how they move and how they treat you.
You know, funny about that? I was thinking about that. You see how you said that just now? I always tell people, when you get children, wherever you're lacking, the child gonna make you get stronger there, you know. So if you're lacking forgiveness, your child gonna push you to be, you got to forgive that child, because that's your child. Yeah.
Well, I can't even speak on that subject there, but I mean, I agree.
The child gonna stretch you.
But I'm not even just the child. Any meaningful engagement, again, like if you want to be a meaningful parent, especially if you're not present in the home or you're not with the mother of your child, right? That is required. The ability to forgive, the ability to let certain things slide, and the ability to take a step back and realize that there were moments where you messed up. You really did things that you shouldn't have done. And what you experienced then at any stage might be karmic. It might be full circle, a revolution. Things come back around and hit you, and it's like, okay, why, this is my experience right now. And it's easy for you to feel like you want to fight. You want to get into all type of things because this person do you this. But you ain't thinking about years ago when you might have done something and you required grace and forgiveness. So now the universe is actually teaching you that, hey, this is your moment to extend grace. This is your moment to forgive, right? And I think that's the highest virtue that you could kind of demonstrate as a man. The willingness to just be hurt, feel hurt, and not allow that to make you dark.
Yeah, even even learning patience and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I understand that any meaningful engagement, but your children just seem a little bit more different because that's yours, That's
higher priority.
Higher, you know what I mean?
Higher priority.
So even your patience level and stuff, like if you don't have no patience, you're gonna have to learn it with a child. Right?
And they stretch you. Especially if you want to do it right. Like when you want to really be a father, right? When you really, really want to be a father, the sacrifices aren't just financial.
No.
The sacrifices aren't just in time. It's sacrificing parts of yourself.
Your ego.
Yeah. And exactly. The ego, those parts of you that you hold on to so tightly, right? Sometimes you have to dim your own colors to allow the people that you love to shine. And that's something that I've been learning the hard way over time. That process of dimming your own color.
Yeah, but it got this quote that says, all valor don't shine, eh? So if you ain't caught up with being in the spotlight and you can understand and take that. Like even if you baby mother or whoever, your girlfriend, your wife could be talking negative about you, but you know what you bring to the table. Like you know what you do for the home, you know what you do for your children, all this thing. Understand that valor don't always shine. So if you ain't in front of rewards, and the end, like you're in for the long term in terms of like seeing your children make it out and be something more than what you was. You know what I mean? Understand that.
To the United Kingdom, allowing the fraudsters to net massive profits. Yeah, according to the City of London Police's Action Fraud Centre, last year cryptocurrency scams went up by 40%, amounting to $370 million for the first time.
The global crypto industry is still reeling from one of the biggest alleged financial frauds in history, involving the now bankrupt trading platform FTX.
I don't think we truly...
Its CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, will stand trial in New York in October, accused of defrauding investors, customers and lenders of more than $8 billion. Among the G7 group of advanced economies, only Japan fully regulates cryptocurrencies.
Well, the European Union's regulation is set to come into effect in 2024. Last week, US regulators sued the crypto exchange Binance, the largest platform in the world, and its rival Coinbase, accusing both firms of selling unregistered securities, the first of many possible moves against the industry.
Giving priority to those startups, they might cause you to neglect in jurisdictions where the regulations are relatively relaxed. I think with a lot of the crypto firms out there,
and as many as easy for us to just decide we're not going to do that, we're not going to
the aim will be build customer base first,
and it might be something as simple as,
and then you just got a lot of nefarious players out there that actually are legitimate in the first place, and all they really want to do is take people's money.
Is the get-rich-quick, no-strings-attached appeal of cryptocurrency trading that's underpinned its success, and there are fears regulation could stifle the market. But as the number of investors, large and small, continues to grow, the more fighting fraud, scams and mismanagement matters. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera.
It's those types of things. It's like wrapping your mind around it and understanding that this is important enough to you for you to make that sacrifice.
We're going to have sport, and it's been a day to say it's been an important day for Nigeria's football team and its fans. So you can hear about that after a quick break.
So they don't do it.
It's a crazy one. My son had lived like
to lead your country onto the pitch is a special moment for any footballer. To do it as a Palestinian woman is a remarkable achievement. Footballing legend Eric Cantona introduces Hani Thalja, who broke through social and political barriers to inspire a generation of female players across the Middle East.
It's a different scale.
Football
and I mean, I've been guilty of that, so that's why I could speak on it.
On Al Jazeera.
Feeling like
investigative journalism.
This was a very notorious gang area. It would have been
absolutely impossible to walk freely like this before. Global experts in discussion.
The internet did not need to be the greatest tool of mass surveillance in the history of the world.
Voices from different corners.
Every they come together and
programs that open your eyes to an alternative view of the world today.
Not many people have seen this. This is special access.
On Al Jazeera.
You've now gone 2 months without seeing your child, and you gotta remember the child is a conscious being, so it ain't like the child just there floating and not recognizing that I mean, my father for
and you see,
2 months.
Like you said, like that's why I have to have those conversations, because I really got to say, you don't even care about how I feel. Just tell me how you feel. Let me know how you feel. Because I really want to be in a couple of years.
It's been 2 years since New York's Tribeca Film Festival dropped the world film from its name. The annual event now premieres podcasts, virtual reality, and even video games. Al Jazeera's Kristen Salumi has more.
Between the star-studded movie premieres and panel discussions that the Tribeca Festival is known for, game developers are also being recognized for their storytelling.
As men, we kind of neglect that. We neglect the importance
is one of 7 video games on display.
I think if more fathers showed up,
part of the world rarely
women would have
represented
more
by this
discernment.
medium.
Right?
Absolutely amazing to be
young
men
would be more responsible
here, because
we would have
think that there aren't too many video games built in
conflict
the Middle East,
resolution,
and we want to change that representation.
Fathers showing up could
the game
only
centers
be
around Layla,
positive
an
in its impact on society.
Is to find out why
I
stars
think
are falling
a lot
from
of the
sky
ills that we see in society are driven in large part by the
developed by Mizan Studios in Qatar. The team consulted with a cultural astronomer and took field trips to study the landscape in designing the game.
It's not just desert. There's lots of different trees, different kind of coastlines. There's a lot of locations which are very interesting to look at, and that's always great for a video game.
Whether it's video games or films, the Tribeca Festival is all about featuring works that are politically, culturally, and socially relevant. But unlike the films, which are ready for distribution, all of the games on display are in early stages of development.
He started out in front of all the school.
Casey Baltes and her team chose the finalists from hundreds of submissions.
We're looking for the potential of artistic excellence in storytelling. We believe at Tribeca
instead of being like heavy-handed all the way through,
are an incredible medium for art and story. All of the games and selections, and actually across the festival, are premieres. People at Tribeca are playing them sometimes for the first time ever, but all before they launch.
Of fatherhood
A welcome pre-launch boost for game developers like Mizan, who now believe the sky is the limit.
Just to the women that
Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera,
right?
New York.
Like I saw this thing recently
Time now for all the sport with Farah in Doha.
Where this girl was saying
Thanks so much, Miriam. Max Verstappen has won the Canadian Grand Prix to take his career tally to 41 victories, equaling that of Brazilian legend Ayrton Senna.
And they just so happened to connect in a bar. They weren't sitting together.
Yeah,
she was in the bar.
And also 100 win for the team, so that's a great result.
Well, the Dutch driver led every lap from pole position to give Red Bull their milestone 100th victory. Fernando Alonso finished second in his Aston Martin, while Britain's seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton was third in his Mercedes. Verstappen's championship lead has been extended to 69 points. It's the sixth win for the Spaniard this season and his fourth in a row.
And she said that made her feel so safe. Because
it's amazing. I mean, I never expected to be on these kind of numbers myself as well, you know, so we keep enjoying, we keep working hard, but today has been a great day again.
We were hoping to challenge a little bit more the Red Bull, but we'll also place at the start with Luis, and then, it was a battle with the Mercedes, and Luis was pushing all the race, so I didn't have one lap where I could relax a little bit, so it was an amazing battle.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's been a great weekend for us. I think we're slowly chipping away. I think the Astons took a little bit of a step ahead this weekend when they added the upgrades, but we're working on bringing some more moving forward.
From a father point
Football
of view.
Now and Spain have just been crowned Nations League champions. The Spaniards beat Croatia via a tense penalty shootout after the match ended goalless after extra time. Ajiki Panenka from Real Madrid's Dani Carvajal sealing the title for Spain.
Really close. Yeah, same for me, really close.
It's Dani Carvajal and Spain's night.
Italy clinched a third spot in the competition. Federico Chiesa completing the scoring for the Italians as they sealed a 3-2 victory over the Netherlands, who were hosting the Nations League finals. Algeria have maintained their perfect record in Africa Cup of Nations qualifying. Having already qualified, they beat Uganda 2-1 away earlier. Mohamed Ali Al-Moura scored both goals. It was a damaging result for Uganda. A win would have put them level on points with second place Tanzania in Group F. Kelechi El Hanacho scored an injury time winner for Nigeria as they beat Sierra Leone 3-2 away. It's a result that seals the Super Eagles qualification.
Okay, I know the twin that she was dating dead.
And the one they dating died.
Australia's cricketers have put some pressure on England on what was a rain-affected day in Birmingham. The Aussies managed to reach 386 all-out on day 3, only a few runs short of England's first innings total. Australian captain Pat Cummins scoring a useful 38, and he even got a wicket later, with England finishing the day on 28 for 2 with 35-run lead.
No, if you are my brother,
you think you can look through it?
Look through what? I don't care, bro. Listen, the fact that you are my brother, more, you are my twin, right? So twins have a different bond.
Jorge Martin has won the MotoGP German Grand Prix on Sunday to heap pressure on rival and current title leader Francesco Bagnaia. The Spaniard finished a fraction of a second ahead of the reigning world champion Bagnaia. Martin had also claimed victory in the sprint race. He now has cut Bagnaia's overall title lead to 16 points. Marc Marquez hit trouble in the warm-up before the race had even begun. This was his fifth crash of the weekend. Very unusual when you consider he's won 11 times at this track going back to 2010. The six-time champion fractured his finger.
It would take time. What I would say is, I wouldn't intentionally
Cuban boxers have long dominated
at
the amateur level, but until recently, women were banned from the ring. Since the rules were changed in December, up-and-coming female boxers have set their sights on the Olympics. At Augustin went to meet some of them in Havana.
Right? So I would maintain.
With more than 40 Olympic gold medals, Cuba dominates amateur boxing like no other country.
A couple $1,000 to
at the Tokyo Olympics, the island nation took home 4 of the 8 golds on offer.
Yeah, you got things like mobile banking.
But until recently,
I would
the glory
provide
was
the
just for men.
But proximity
in December,
and
when the Boxing Federation
developing a bond and a relationship. No, that's too close to home. But again, I think it depends on personality type. My personality type is one
Being
where
the first woman boxer to have won a competition is wonderful.
Right?
It's a dream come true. We women have been waiting for this opportunity for a long time.
I'm going to find a space in my heart and set up shop.
Authorities once argued that Cuban women are meant to
because
show
I know
their
that
faces,
I'm very
not
self-aware,
take
or at least I try to be.
In more recent
I know
years,
I
the
will never be
justification
able to
shifted
look
to safety
like
concerns.
seeing or watching her in her face, I'm going to always remember this
We did rush the decision to approve female boxing because we want to protect women. There were worries about whether boxing could damage women's bodies, especially women right now.
Many see the long delay as rooted not in
that's very
science,
little to
in
do with me.
patriarchy.
I mean, when the child gets to a certain
This was seen
age,
as a sport for
right?
men,
So let's say
while
like
women
15,
were supposed to be at home.
and
They didn't want us to
because
box.
the type of person I am is I
I
would
thought
never
it was
show any
unjust and
dark
it made me
vibe.
feel uncomfortable.
So
I thought I had the
if
same
the
rights
child
as
is
men.
around, let's say another sibling, let's say we have a sister,
Having taken the first step and made it into the ring, these up-and-coming boxers
chip in
are
and
excited.
and support the child. And
Now that they're finally boxing
if we are sharing a
competitively, many on the
space, like
team
if we
feel they're
at
already
a
living their
particular
dream.
family home,
But they have a
the
new
child
challenge
come
fast
around.
approaching.
In a weird
Qualification
way,
for
in
the
an awkward
2024
vibe, I would lift up the
Paris
child, I would play with the youth and so on. But
Ariane
I would
Imbert,
just have zero
who left the
interaction
national
with the mother.
taekwondo team to box
Right?
a few months
now,
ago,
the child
thinks
gets
she's
to a
got what it
certain
takes.
age and they need guidance, they need
Like
whatever
all
it is.
athletes, my
At
dream
the
is
end
to
of the
win an
day,
Olympic medal.
that
But first I
dynamic
need
and
to
how things
qualify.
play out there,
That will be
it is
hard,
what it is.
but I think I
right?
can do it.
I would hope that by the time the child 15, I mean I'm 15
As
years
does her
old as well,
teammate, Karen
so I have
Cantillo,
more maturity.
even though she's only
I've
been boxing
developed
for a
to
short
stage
time.
where I could look past I realize that's
Before,
life.
my dream was for
right?
women's
Things happen
boxing to
in
be
life,
approved.
and it really has
Now
nothing
my
to do
dream
with
has
the child.
changed.
The
I want
child
to be a champion,
is just a
win
product
medals, and
of
make history.
warped thinking and people operating in whatever space
These women
they're
aren't
operating
only
in.
punching their way to
But
the world's most prestigious sports
when you really
competition,
look through it
they're also
from a place of
shattering glass
consciousness,
ceilings.
the child kind of innocent.
Ed Augustine,
Right?
Al
The child
Jazeera,
is innocent to
Havana.
all of the nonsense that
And
went
the Vegas
down
Golden Knights have been
during the
celebrating the
conception
historic
part.
Stanley Cup
So,
win. The
if
Golden
I could
Knights won North
recognize
American
that,
hockey's
then
biggest
I would
title
deal with the
in
child
just
just
6
based on
years
the
after
merit
joining
that,
the league.
yo,
Tens
my
of
blood running
thousands
through
of
your
fans
veins,
packed
same
out
way.
the Vegas Strip
Right? So
to
I
see
can
the
deal with
team
you
and famous trophy.
with love.
Vegas defeated the
But
Florida Panthers to win
at
their
some
first
stage,
championship
you're going to
title.
get to a level of consciousness where you realize, my
And that
uncle
is our
don't play
sport
with
for
my
now.
mother
It's now
at
back to
all.
Miriam in
Why?
London.
And you're going to start to ask questions. That's something for she now to go
With more of the
max out
day's
with
news.
you, but they're
Stay
going
with
to
us.
So you're saying at some maturity level, you kind of step in and be like a father figure to the child. Definitely from the child perspective.
Right, and from a distance too. So ain't like I ain't check in with she and find out. So I don't think I would be able to have any meaningful relationship with that child when it's small, like really small. But when you get to an age where you can reach out to me on your own and give me contact and message and call and so, yeah man, I would definitely be there.
You know, like before we wrap up, I really just want to say that, happy Father's Day again to everybody out there. And some people recently lost.
With almost 8 billion people in the world,
right?
Food production
just recently lost their fathers, and this probably gonna be like something that I got to relive every year. And Father's Day, like around this time. So, and I know you see some of the videos that are going on with people like OJ, Mac, like all these people who passed away recently, and even before them. But I know this time in particular, you could just feel the vibe because you just put yourself in people's shoes and you're just like, wow.
But for me, it's a little bit different than feeling the vibe. A lot of it was really close to home for me because almost all of the people in all of those unfortunate circumstances had a degree of proximity to me, or people in my life, like really close. You know what I mean? So I would say the incarcerations, the untimely deaths, all of those things, like me and all them people had real connections. Real connections, not that I see you in passing, but we actually have
good dialogue and
like we got a relationship. So to lose you in such an untimely way, hard.
Yeah, man.
Right? And
rest in peace,
Yeah, man, I definitely can understand what the family is going through. So by how we could ask for his strength for them, and hope that at some point in time they find peace, but I don't know what to say because I've experienced death, so I know what it's like
to lose a loved one. Either.
Yeah, man. So all you could kind of do is just hold space with them people, but at the end of the day, you just know that why inconceivable. So I would prefer not to even really speak on it too tough, but it's just like, yeah, we see you. We see you for sure. But again, to all of the fathers out there who really trying and putting in an effort and working through even difficult situations, hold your head up. You know what I mean? Don't complain, because that's life.
And pick up all the uncles and cousins and so show up as father figures.
Yeah, man.
Same with granddads, everything.
Big respect to everybody that's, you know what I mean, showing up as a man in the world and making sure that they leave this space a little bit better than the way they found it. Yeah, you've been listening to the He Nuh Show on WINN Media 98.9. I'm OLONZO Alexander in studios with ATIBA Byron, and we want to say good evening, everybody. Love.
You found the sound. 98.9. WINN FM.
We now bring you the WINN FM News. The WINN FM News is brought to you by Carrie Brewery, SL Hoxfords and Company Limited, Rams Trading, The Cable, and TDC.
Enjoy the convenience of getting all your documents in one place. At the TDC Copy and Print Center on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, we do just that. We offer document formatting, graphic design, and copy and print services. Our team of professionals truly understand all your needs, whether it be administrative, professional, academic, or personal. You bring it, we deliver it with quality every time. Visit the TDC Copy and Print Center today in the TDC Mall on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, or call 465